Hi, today we are going to discuss about the project management job description series. As in when we already know, so when it comes to the implementation of any project, especially in the field of IT, at the same time, even in non-IT, when they're in the other fields like any BFSI domains or any healthcare, or else if there is something relating to the constructions and all. So managing the projects is one of the key responsibility any project manager has to be dealt with. So the role of a project manager is not something confined only for IT projects. Even in non-IT also, we see most of the job opportunities in context to the project manager. So whatever the common responsibilities from the IT and as well as non-IT were more. Additionally, whatever the additional skill sets required for any project manager from IT and non-IT may have some variation. But end of the day, there are couple of responsibilities which I'm mentioning because this is the video which is majorly intended for the people who are applying for jobs for project management role. And most of the people, as far as my experience is concerned, I have seen many people who are looking for some career transformation. So especially mid-level as well as the senior level positions who wants to apply for the project management roles. Many people doesn't have, due to ignorance, many people doesn't have a clear idea about what responsibilities to be mentioned and what kind of skill set one has to be acquired with, right? So there, out of my experience, as in when I am into coaching, I'm into consulting for mentoring all the people for a more long time, right? So more than 2 decades. So in regard to that, this video might be helpful to those people. When it comes to the responsibility of a project manager, irrespective of the technology, irrespective of the domain we belongs to. The first one about communication planning, because how you are communicating the projects and how the communication planning we are making on. Because based on the high level requirements against to the RFP document which was given by the customer, how the communication planning to be made is what something which project management team or project manager has to be taken care of. So it's not only communication planning, project planning, execution. So how the execution has to be taken place, right? So what is the strategy we need to implement in context to the execution as well as the transition strategy. So that sort of understanding for any project manager must be good with. That is point number one. Point number two, team management and collaboration is also one of the key element for any project manager because to manage day-to-day activities, often different people, right? So either it can be technical team, either it can be functional teams and all that. So monitoring and managing day-to-day activities wherein by collaborating, observation and all. For multiple projects and as well as different project lines. Sometimes being a project manager, we will be working on multiple projects. There is no one project. Might require to manage multiple projects in the real world. So multi-project tasking is also required. So that sort of clarity is required for any project manager. So one of the key responsibility will be of this sort. The third one about costing and budgeting, because we will be involving in costing and budgeting preparations, etc. Again, this costing and budgeting techniques as well as the strategies and approach varies from traditional to agile, because if you see the implementation of the projects in the real world, this we can categorize into two different ways. One is about the traditional way of application development approach. At the same time, agile way of approach. So even being a business analyst or being a project manager or the kind of role, whatever the people were playing, especially project manager roles and all. So whatever the budget planning, at the same time, cost planning and all everything will be varied from traditional practices to agile. So we'll be involving in project costing, budgeting, preparing some budgeting reports, analysis. This is also required for a project manager. Sometimes there will be some X amount of budget will be allocated. So within that budget, how this can be implemented, how the project can be implemented within the specific timelines. So those sort of responsibilities one has to be rendered with. Next, identifying and providing solution for the scope, because scope deviation leads to delay as well as failure of the project, which may leads to cost failure. So understanding and providing the scope for any of the project is also one of the key factor for any project management role we maintain. Next, project controlling. At the same time, the kind of governance strategies, compliance standards. At the same time, managing some risk management, right? So identifying the risk, analyzing the risk, right? So what risk resolution strategies are we making? Either it can be a technical risk, it can be a budget level, it can be an operational risk, it can be a feasibility part. So understanding about the governance standards, policies and procedures, risk management. At the same time, stakeholder management, right? So managing the stakeholders, multiple stakeholders, either it can be an external stakeholders or internal stakeholders, stakeholder management, and how the opportunities to be identified. Because regular opportunities will be there in the market, and how this can be identified and how these opportunities has to be managed. So these responsibilities will also be managed by us. Next, manpower and workforce planning depends on the budget and the timelines. At the same time, creating a work breakdown structure so that the hierarchical process will be maintained 100%. So that even we need to focus more. Next, we need to involve in the change management part, because when there is a solution we are developing or when we are working on some project, as I stated earlier, it's not only IT, even in non-IT also, when we are working on some project or a process, there are some changes which might be taken place in between. One must be managed on. This is where generally involving in change management, change request. All these things will be comes under this category. Next, we need to monitor and report. Right? So because we need to monitor and reporting the status of the work by tracking the progress of work. So all these things will be done by the project manager. But nowadays, when we see in agile environment, especially there are a couple of roles as Scrum Masters. But Scrum Master responsibilities, the kind of mindset which Scrum Master has to facilitate will be different, because major difference you see from project manager to Scrum Master is that Scrum Master is a team facilitator. They'll be focusing on team management, team facilitating. But project manager is not a team facilitator, right? So because project manager has an authority to take a decision on a particular project, but Scrum Master doesn't have it, right? So they have only facilitation experience. If you understand from the high level point of view, this is what the point to be understood here. So we'll be involving in change request, etc. At the same time, monitoring and reporting, dealing with different compliance standards, risk management. So these are the responsibilities we need to render. Now, when it comes to the functional skills, what kind of functional skills one has to be good with? When it comes to the functional skills and all, normally it's always important, because project managers, especially in the field of IT, if you say IT project management, having some technical knowledge will be helpful, because this is where technical project managers comes into picture. Because if you are from the technical side, or if you have some knowledge over the technology, I don't say hands-on experience for all the people, because in the real world, hands-on experience may not be there for all the people, but to have some idea over the technical jargons and terminologies and the processes is required. So before the technical skills, one need to have some functional skills. Either it can be domain specific, either it can be BFSI, like banking, financial services, insurance, healthcare, compliance, at the same time, legal, construction, right? So some kind of domain specific, right? Oil and gas, travel, telecom. So domain specific, any one domain specific or one or two domain specific, depends on the experience what we have. So it's always helpful for people, because along with project management experience, one domain experience will always be helpful to us. Next, we need to have a knowledge over the standards. What are the quality standards we are implementing, right? So either it can be lean process or Six Sigma. So this sort of knowledge even is required. At the same time, cross-functional team management, because earlier it's only technical team as separate, at the same time functional teams as separate. But now cross-functional team management, both functional as well as technical team coordination is required. So those skill sets are also required for the functional skills for a project management team, project manager. At the same time, business processes or else any CRM or ERP process. So that knowledge is also required. This is where functional skills, on a simple note I mentioned, there could be many, because depends on the role, depends on the industry, depends on the experience, depends on the project. So these functional roles or technical roles may vary, because we cannot put everything on the paper, right? So whatever the proven experience one must be, so we have to limit to an extent possible. That is always advisable. Being into, I provide that career advice and coaching services. So I always advise to the people, because we cannot put all these, right? So it depends on the experience what we carry. We have to put something, we need to limit to an extent. This is where functional skills comes into existence. Next, technical skills required, because when we are working for IT projects and all, need to have a knowledge over software development life cycle. At the same time, traditional and agile, something like waterfall model, V model, agile. At the same time, when it comes to agile, there are some people follow Scrum framework. Need to understand the process. At the same time, there are different Scrum ceremonies like sprint planning, daily Scrum review, retrospections, and different artifacts like product backlog grooming, right? So this sort of knowledge is required. So both traditional as well as agile, because project of training and job opportunities may be in that side as well as this side. Next, knowledge over the working on tools, either it can be Jira, Rally, Azure DevOps. At the same time, traditional project management, we have a tool called Microsoft Project, MS Project, right? So that is even required. At the same time, migration projects, because most of the projects nowadays are moving towards migration side. So having knowledge over the migration process is also one of the key and important knowledge one must be good with. Next, DevOps environment, because nowadays projects are moving to a DevOps environment. Teams are implementing DevOps approaches. So understanding about continuous integration, deployment, delivery process is needed for any project manager under the technical skills. Along with this, when it comes to the agile practices, Scrum, Kanban is also one of the model. At the same time, XP, extreme programming practices like TDD, BDD, test-driven development, behavioral-driven development, model-driven development, feature-driven development, pair programming, right? So this sort of knowledge is also an additional skill sets one must be good with. I don't advise that all the technical skills will be there for the people. I don't say that, but to an extent possible, depends on our limitations. We need to have some knowledge that is always needed. Next, programming knowledge will be plus, because if you are coming from the programming side and learning some basics of programming will always be helpful to us. This is where generally technical skills comes into picture. Now, what are the key skills? When you're talking about the key skills and all, so overall key skills like project management, budgeting, at the same time, change request, project monitoring and execution, risk management. So these are the key skills which we have to be updated, so that when people wants to see, right? So job opportunities when people see. So based on the key skills, what was mentioned by us, based on that, we get the calls, right? So this is also one you have to be focused on. Next, other focused areas, because where most of the job opportunities lies upon, right? So because our role will be mainly, you can see, There are different roles you can see it in the job profiles like IT project manager, agile project management, technical project manager, right? So different roles. Some companies they want some project manager and scrum master both, right? So combinations, right? So these are all role specific. Like industry, IT industry requires, because either it can be service industry, or it can be a consulting industry. If it's a product based, they require product managers, not product managers. I'll make a separate video for project manager roles also, product managers roles, but services industry. At the same time, any non-IT industry, like either it can be BFSC domain or healthcare, legal, construction. So these industries also needed. Next, departments. Even either it can be a project management department or program management, because project is relating only for a particular project. Program management means couple of projects or comes under program. So this is where program management come into picture. Next role category, technology, IT. So these are the areas which is to be focused, right? So this is what's completely about the project manager when we are applying for jobs. One should be having, right? So one should to have a knowledge over these. This is all something which normally being a project manager, one must be good and familiar with. This is all about this video. If you have any questions, if you have any queries, please reach out to the contact details, which will be provided below to this video. Thank you.